Right now, someone is using at least one of these 7 tactics on you. You won't notice it. That's the point. They won't raise their voice. They won't threaten you. They won't even seem unkind. In fact, they'll seem like the most understanding person you've ever met. And that is exactly how they win. By the end of this video, you will see through every single one of them. You will never be the same person you were 35 minutes ago. If you watched my last video on the Dark Triad, you already know who these people are. The narcissist, the Machiavellian, the psychopath. 3 personalities, 1 dark core, and a shared toolkit of manipulation so refined, so surgical, so quietly devastating that most of their victims never even realized they were being played. Until it's too late. Today I'm going to hand you their playbook. 7 tactics, every single one used in offices, bedrooms, families, friendships, and boardrooms, every single day of your life. You've been on the receiving end of at least 3 of them this week. You just didn't have a name for what was happening. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Once you learn these tactics, you can't unlearn them. You'll see them in your partner, your boss, your best friend, your parent, maybe even in yourself. But by the end of this video, you will also know exactly how to become immune. Not defensive, not paranoid, immune. Because the greatest weapon against a manipulator is a mind they cannot manipulate. Let's begin. Before we get into the 7 tactics themselves, you need to understand something crucial. Manipulation doesn't work because you're weak. It works because you're human. Every one of these tactics targets a specific psychological mechanism that exists in every single human brain. Empathy, uncertainty, the need to belong, the fear of loss, the desire to be seen, the instinct to trust. These aren't flaws. They are the very features that make you capable of love, cooperation, and connection. And that is the tragedy. The same wiring that allows you to bond deeply with another person is the exact wiring a Dark Triad personality exploits to destroy you. Psychologist Robert Cialdini spent decades studying influence. He found that human beings have automatic behavioral scripts, reflexes we run without thinking. Reciprocity, consistency, social proof, authority. Manipulators know these scripts by heart, not from books, from instinct. They watch you, they test you, they learn which buttons make you flinch, which words make you soften, which silences make you desperate. And then they press. So the question isn't whether you're vulnerable to manipulation. Everyone is. The question is, will you recognize it when it happens? Let's start with tactic number 1. And I promise you, you've already been hit with this one, probably today. Tactic number 1, love bombing. Imagine you meet someone, and within days, sometimes hours, they seem to understand you better than anyone ever has. They text you constantly. They compliment things about you that no one else has ever noticed. They tell you you're different, special, unlike anyone they've ever met. They call you their soulmate before they've even known you a month. This is love bombing, and it is the single most effective manipulation tactic ever devised. Because it doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like finally being seen. Here's the science behind it. When someone floods you with attention, admiration, and affection, your brain releases massive doses of dopamine and oxytocin, the same chemicals released during cocaine use, the same chemicals released during genuine bonding. Your brain cannot tell the difference between real love and engineered love. By the time the manipulator drops the mask, you're already chemically addicted to them. But here's where it gets dark. Love bombing isn't just romantic. It happens in friendships, in workplaces, in cults, in politics. The new coworker who takes an unusual interest in you, the mentor who calls you the most talented person they've ever mentored, the friend who within weeks is treating you like a lifelong sibling. Have you ever met someone like this? Someone whose warmth felt just a little too much too soon? That instinct in the pit of your stomach. Listen to it. Because here is the rule you must never forget. Real intimacy is built. Manufactured intimacy is deployed. Real trust is earned in inches, over months, sometimes years. Anyone offering it to you in miles, within days, is not offering you love. They are offering you a leash. How to become immune. Slow everything down. When someone floods you with intensity, match it with patience. Watch how they respond to your pace. A genuine person will respect it. A manipulator will punish it with sulking, guilt, or a dramatic shift in warmth. That shift is the mask slipping. And once you see it slip, you never forget its shape. Tactic number 2, gaslighting. You remember what they said. You know you remember. But they're looking you in the eye, calm, patient, almost concerned, telling you that you're wrong, that it never happened, that you're misremembering, that you're being emotional, that you're the problem. And slowly, you start to wonder if maybe they're right. That is gaslighting, and it is psychological warfare disguised as conversation. The term comes from a 1944 film called Gaslight, in which a husband slowly convinces his wife she's losing her mind by dimming the gas lamps and insisting she's imagining it. Today, gaslighting has become one of the most common and most devastating manipulation tactics in the world, because it doesn't just make you doubt an event, it makes you doubt yourself. And when you doubt yourself, you need someone to tell you what's real. Guess who volunteers? Here's what gaslighting sounds like in the wild. That never happened. You're being too sensitive. You're remembering it wrong. Everyone agrees with me. You're the only one who thinks that. I never said that. You always twist my words. Why do you always overreact? Sound familiar? Now imagine hearing sentences like these from someone you love, someone you trust, someone you depend on, every single day for months, years. You wouldn't just lose an argument, you would lose your grip on reality itself. This is why survivors of gaslighting often describe the aftermath as more painful than the relationship itself. Because they don't just have to heal from what was done to them, they have to rebuild the very foundation of what they know to be true. How to become immune. Write things down. This is the single most powerful defense against gaslighting. Journal what was said. Screenshot messages. Keep a private record, one they cannot access, cannot edit, cannot deny. Because a gaslighter needs your memory to be malleable. And ink is not malleable. And when they tell you it never happened, you don't argue. You don't try to convince them. You simply know. Certainty is the antidote to gaslighting. And certainty is built quietly, in private, in writing. Now, everything I've shown you so far is what most people call manipulation, love bombing, gaslighting. These are the tactics that show up in every therapist's office, every self-help book, every viral article. But what I'm about to reveal next is the part most people never talk about. Because these next 5 tactics are subtler, colder, more surgical. They are the moves used not by the desperate manipulator, but by the sophisticated one. The Machiavellian who plays a 10-year game. The psychopath who never raises their voice. The Dark Triad personality who has been refining these techniques since childhood and can deploy them in a single sentence, a single glance, a single moment of silence. If you've ever left a conversation feeling drained, confused, or somehow wrong without knowing why, you've been hit with one of the next 5. Let's keep going. Tactic number 3, intermittent reinforcement. In the 1950s, psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered something disturbing about the human brain. If you reward a behavior every time, the behavior is easy to extinguish. If you reward it unpredictably, it becomes almost impossible to stop. This is why slot machines are the most addictive form of gambling ever invented. Not because you win a lot, because you never know when you'll win. Your brain becomes obsessed with the uncertainty itself. Now, imagine a person who applies this same principle to love. Some days they're warm, affectionate, the person you fell for. Other days they're cold, distant, cruel, silent. And you never know which version you're going to get. This is intermittent reinforcement, and it is the reason people stay in relationships that are destroying them. Because your brain, chasing those unpredictable moments of warmth, releases dopamine in patterns identical to addiction. You are not in love, you are in withdrawal. Every kind word becomes a hit, every cold silence becomes a craving. And the manipulator knows this. They don't need to be cruel all the time, just often enough to keep you hungry. Have you ever stayed with someone long past the point you knew you should leave? Have you ever gone back to someone you swore you were done with? That wasn't weakness, that was chemistry, engineered chemistry. How to become immune. Track the pattern, not the moments. Manipulators survive on the memory of good moments, the vacation, the apology, the perfect night. They know you'll cling to those. But the truth of any relationship is not in the peaks, it is in the baseline. Ask yourself, what is the average day like with this person? Not the best, not the worst, the average. If the average is cold, chaotic, or draining, no peak is high enough to justify the valley. Tactic number 4, triangulation. You're in a relationship. Suddenly they start mentioning someone else, a coworker, an ex, a friend, someone who understands them, someone who's always there for them, someone you never quite feel secure about. They don't accuse you of anything. They don't threaten to leave. They just mention. And slowly, you start to compete for their attention, for their approval, for a place in their world you thought was already yours. This is triangulation, and it is one of the oldest manipulation tactics in human history. The manipulator introduces a third party, real or imagined, to create insecurity, competition, and self-doubt. Suddenly, you're not just in a relationship, you're in a contest. And the manipulator? They sit at the top of the triangle, watching, enjoying, deciding. Triangulation happens everywhere. A parent who pits siblings against each other, a boss who lets employees fight for favor, a friend who tells you what other people said about you, always framed as concern. The result is always the same. You stop trusting the people around you and start trusting only the manipulator. Because the manipulator is the only one giving you information. And information, carefully filtered, strategically leaked, is one of the most powerful weapons ever invented. How to become immune. Talk directly to the third parties. This is the tactic's kryptonite. A triangulator relies on you never verifying what they've told you. The moment you go to the source, the coworker, the sibling, the friend, the entire structure collapses. Most of what they said was never said. Most of what they meant was never meant. It was theater, and you were the audience. Stop being the audience. Become the investigator. Tactic number 5, Darvo. You confront them about something they did wrong, something clear, something you can prove. And within 60 seconds, you are the one apologizing. You don't know how it happened. You came in with evidence. You came in with certainty. But somehow, by the end of the conversation, they were the victim, and you were the aggressor. This is Darvo, and it is the manipulation tactic that has ruined more confrontations than any other. The term was coined by psychologist Jennifer Fried. It stands for 4 steps: deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. Step 1, they deny it happened. Step 2, They attack you, your character, your memory, your intentions. Step 3 and 4. They reframe the entire situation so they are the victim, and you are the one who hurt them. It works because it hits you before you can process it. You came expecting a conversation, you got a courtroom, and you're on trial. Darvo is used by abusers, corrupt executives, unfaithful partners, corrupt politicians, anyone with something to hide and no interest in accountability. And it is devastatingly effective because most decent people will do anything to avoid being seen as the aggressor, including apologizing for things they didn't do. Have you ever walked away from a confrontation somehow apologizing for bringing it up? Have you ever felt guilt for holding someone accountable? That guilt wasn't yours. It was installed. How to become immune. Prepare before you confront. Never confront a dark triad personality in the heat of the moment. Write down the incident, state it in one sentence, and when they deny, attack, or reverse it, you do not defend yourself. You do not explain. You do not justify. You simply repeat the sentence. They cannot manipulate a person who refuses to engage with the manipulation. They can only manipulate someone who takes the bait. Stop taking the bait. If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of 99% of people. Most people go their entire lives never learning to see these tactics. They marry them. They work for them. They raise their children with them. And they die without ever understanding why their lives felt so heavy for so long. But the most important part of this entire video is coming up right now. Because the final two tactics are the ones that dark triad personalities use not to hurt you, but to own you. These are the tactics that turn victims into loyalists, that turn employees into apologists, that turn family members into defenders of the very people destroying them. These are the endgame moves. Let's finish this. Tactic number 6, isolation. It doesn't happen overnight. It starts small. A comment about your best friend, nothing cruel, just a subtle observation. I don't know, they seem kind of jealous of you. A slight tension every time you see your family. A vague discomfort whenever you make plans without them. And slowly, without ever being told to, you start to withdraw. You see your friends less. You call your family less. Your world shrinks. Not because they forced you, because they engineered it so that spending time with anyone else felt just a little bit harder than staying with them. This is isolation. And it is the tactic that gives all the others their power. Because a person surrounded by loved ones has a reality check. They can turn to someone and say, "Is this normal? Am I overreacting?" And that someone can tell them the truth. But an isolated person has only the manipulator's voice. And when the manipulator is the only mirror, they can make you look like anything they want. Isolation happens in cults, in abusive relationships, in toxic workplaces where you're subtly pushed to distrust every coworker, in friendships that demand exclusivity. The signs are quiet. Shrinking social circles, growing dependence, feeling guilty for connecting with anyone else, a persistent sense that no one truly understands you except them. How to become immune. Protect your relationships like your life depends on them, because in a very real psychological sense, it does. The moment someone in your life makes you feel guilty for maintaining other relationships, pay attention. That is not love. That is architecture. Call your parents, text your oldest friend, have dinner with a person you haven't seen in months. Keep your network alive. Manipulation cannot survive in a room full of witnesses. Tactic number 7, future faking. They paint a future so vivid, so detailed, so perfectly aligned with your deepest desires that you cannot help but stay. The wedding, the business you'll build together, the trip you'll take next year, the house, the child, the promotion, the apology that will finally come. And you believe them, because they sound so sure, because the details are so specific, because you want it to be true. But the future never arrives. This is future faking, and it is the tactic that keeps victims trapped for years, sometimes decades. Here's the psychology behind it. Human beings do not stay in relationships based on how things are. We stay based on how we believe things will be. Hope is more powerful than reality, and a skilled manipulator knows how to weaponize hope. Every time you're about to leave, they'll deploy a new promise, a new vision, a new version of the future that finally makes all the pain worth it. And you'll stay, because leaving now would mean giving up on the dream they've been selling you. But the dream was never a plan. It was bait. The vacation never gets booked. The ring never gets bought. The apology never comes. The change never happens. How to become immune. Judge people by their behavior, never by their words. This is the single most important lesson in this entire video. Anyone can say anything. Words cost nothing. Behavior is the only truthful language. When someone tells you what they will do, say nothing. Watch. If the behavior matches the promise, they are trustworthy. If it doesn't, they are performing. Give people 90 days. 90 days of watching without responding to their words. You will learn more about someone in that silent observation than in 1,000 promises. Now, let me tell you what all 7 of these tactics have in common. Each one attacks a specific psychological pillar of the self. Love bombing attacks your sense of specialness. Gaslighting attacks your sense of reality. Intermittent reinforcement attacks your sense of security. Triangulation attacks your sense of belonging. Darvo attacks your sense of moral clarity. Isolation attacks your sense of community. Future faking attacks your sense of hope. Together, they don't just manipulate you, they dismantle you, piece by piece, until nothing is left but a person who exists only in reference to the manipulator. This is why victims of Dark Triad personalities often describe the experience not as being hurt, but as being erased. Because you weren't just tricked, you were slowly, methodically taken apart. And here is the darkest truth of all. The manipulator often doesn't even know they're doing it consciously. For many Dark Triad personalities, this is simply how they've always operated. It is not a strategy they had to learn, it is instinct. Which means you cannot appeal to their conscience. You cannot expect them to change. You cannot reason with the wound that made them. You can only recognize the pattern and remove yourself from it. So how do you make yourself immune? It's not by becoming cold. It's not by becoming suspicious. It's not by treating everyone like a threat. Because if you do that, you've already lost. The manipulator has taken your ability to love, to trust, to connect, even after they've gone. The real immunity is different. It is the immunity of self-knowledge. The manipulator's power lies entirely in one thing: your uncertainty about yourself. They can only gaslight you if you don't know what you saw. They can only love bomb you if you don't know what you're worth. They can only triangulate you if you don't know where you belong. They can only future fake you if you don't know what you actually want. The stronger your relationship with yourself, the weaker every one of these tactics becomes. Know your values, know your history, know what a good day looks like for you. Know what love has felt like, real love, so that when someone offers you a counterfeit, your body recognizes it before your mind does. The Stoics had a phrase for this: fortress within, an inner citadel that no external force can breach, not because the walls are thick, but because the person inside knows exactly who they are. Build that fortress every day in small, quiet ways. Journal, reflect, rest, sit with yourself in silence. Learn to distinguish your voice from every other voice you've internalized, because the person who knows themselves cannot be sold a false version of themselves. And that is the only true immunity. At the beginning of this video, I told you that someone is using at least one of these tactics on you right now. That was true. But here is the other side of that truth. The moment you learned to see these tactics, their power over you began to die. Not because the manipulators disappeared, but because you stopped being their raw material. The love bomber cannot manufacture intimacy with someone who moves slowly. The gaslighter cannot rewrite the memory of someone who takes notes. The intermittent reinforcer cannot addict someone who watches the baseline. The triangulator cannot divide someone who speaks directly. The Darvo artist cannot flip someone who refuses to defend. The isolator cannot surround someone who protects their people. The future faker cannot trap someone who judges by behavior. 7 tactics, 7 shields, 1 awakened mind. You didn't just watch a video, you just made yourself harder to destroy. And in a world full of quiet predators, that is the most valuable thing you can be. The mask is only powerful when you can't see through it. Now, you can. Welcome to the other side. If this video showed you something you'd never seen before, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach the people who need it most. Subscribe if you want more content that pulls back the curtain on how power, psychology, and human behavior really work. And in the comments below, I want to know, which of these 7 tactics have you experienced in your own life? Which one hit closest to home? In my next video, I'm going to reveal the psychology of the dark empath, a personality type more dangerous than the entire Dark Triad combined. Someone who has all the manipulation of a Dark Triad personality, plus the emotional intelligence to see straight into your soul. You do not want to miss it. Until then, stay awake, stay aware, and remember, the mask is only powerful when you can't see through it.